Hello and welcome. This is Noah with Nomad Gaming, and thank you for joining us for another Marvel Champions deck building video featuring the Black Widow. Marvel Champions is a living card game produced and distributed by Fantasy Flight Games. If you are looking for regular access to top-level Marvel Champions strategy, deck building, and updates, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications to connect with our show and show your support for the channel for free. Today we are going to take a different spin on deck building and provide an introductory guide to help you build better. Whether it be your first deck or your 100th, let's get moving. Let's get started with basic deck building rules from the player rules reference. Don't worry though, that is a lot of words and we have made it a little bit more simple. You get one two-sided hero card, which is going to have a huge impact on what goes into your deck. It comes with a 15-card signature pool that has to be included. Your deck is going to have 40 or 50 cards in it. Those numbers are a hard floor and a hard ceiling, so get it right. It's just counting. With 15 of those cards being used by the signature pool, we get to customize 25 to 35 player cards. We are going to need to choose an aspect, aggression, justice, leadership, or protection, and in any deck you can use basic gray cards. In terms of card limits, you can play 3 copies of any card with the same title. You only get 1 copy of each unique card in your deck. Now that the card pool is expanding, you should know that you can't play a unique card from your hand if it is already in play from another player or shares the same name and title as another hero in play. Lastly, check your deck building requirements for the hero. So far, we only know of one hero with a deck building requirement. That is the yet-to-be-released Spider-Woman, who requires equal numbers of cards from each of 2 aspects. See, that's not too complicated, so why don't you join me as we build a fresh new deck. As of July 3rd, there were officially 10 heroes in the game. You can build your deck around any of them. They have different playstyles and synergies to consider. If you are just starting out, choose one that's fun for you, or do what I did and pick your favorite comic book character. For today, we're going to do a Black Widow build. She was just released in June and provides an incredibly synergistic pool and some fun effects. As you can see here, she has synergy with preparation cards, there we go. As you can see there, she has synergy with some preparation cards, something that we will keep in mind shortly. She also looks like she is going to spend some time in both modes, so we're going to want to take full advantage of her responsibilities. So let's take a quick peek at the first 15 cards that are going to make our deck. After choosing a hero, the next step is to add the 15-card signature pool to the deck. At this point in the game, there are no options to customize this pool, so everyone who plays Black Widow will have these same 15 cards. I have to say, it's a pretty sweet pool. If you would like to see a more detailed breakdown of these cards, check out our Black Widow hero review linked on the screen now. For our purposes today, you should take notice that we have 2 upgrades that add resources, but only to play preparation cards. An ally who gets cheaper for each preparation that we have in play, 2 events, 2 copies of each, which pack huge punches, one that deals with threat, one that deals out damage, and we can also ready and defend with our special suit. So, when we choose our aspect and player cards, we are going to want to play more preparations and find ways to get our powerful signature cards into our hand ASAP. Before we keep building, you should consider what scenario or scenarios you plan to play against. Right now, we don't have campaign play, so you can freely change your deck and adapt to conquer each specific challenge that you will be facing. Each of the current villains provides unique challenges and gameplay. If you don't know which one you will attack, don't worry too much. You will soon find out what each has in store. For right now, I like to build a generic shell and then tweak it a little bit based on the scenario and difficulty choices as needed. Okay, back to our building. So, step 3 is going to be choosing an aspect. Marvel Champion has 4 aspects. Aggression deals damage really well, but could be said to have some trouble with threat. Justice crushes threat, but doesn't have all the damage options of the other aspects. Leadership does a little bit of everything and has a focus on synergistic ally play, and protection keeps you alive with a defensive focus and access to healing. For this build, I'm going to go with leadership. So far, I don't see a lot of coverage of this hero and aspect pair, and I want to find out how it will do in the game. So, having chosen an aspect, we need to fill out our deck with aspect and basic cards. After the initial 15 signature cards, we have 25 to 35 slots left, and I personally prefer to play with a 40 card deck. So we are going to shoot for 25 more cards. I usually start by adding a set of 5 staple resource cards to my deck. The 2 power of whatever aspect we have chosen, in this case leadership, and 1 each of the basic resource cards, energy, genius, and strength. That then leaves us with room for 20 more cards. Since we have Black Widow and she wants to exploit synergies with preparation cards, we should look at the preparations in our aspect first. Unfortunately, there is only one, Rapid Response. Don't be fooled though, this card is awesome! You can only have one of these in play at a time, but if it's in play, you have an ally die, you can discard this card to get that ally back into play with 1 damage on it. This is going to cause Inner's play abilities to re-trigger, so I think we should try to build a deck that exploits Inner's play abilities. We are going to include 3 of these, so let's put them into the deck and take a look at our basic cards for any other options that we have for preparations. In the basic card pool, there are 2 preparations, Espionage and Target Acquired. Initially, I wasn't too sure about Target Acquired, but after a couple of heroic playthroughs with this hero, I can tell you that both of these are pretty strong cards. One hint I probably should have noticed is that the 1 per player limit on Target Acquired was put there, and Fantasy Flight Games didn't just put that there to meet a word count. They did it because this card would be broken otherwise. Since we're going for a generic build, let's put 2 of each into the deck, but note that if you are playing against an increased difficulty or against Claw or Goblin, you may want to shift around these numbers a little bit to reflect your circumstances. That's going to leave us though with 13 slots remaining, so let's keep working. Since preparations are upgrades, let's take a look at the options we have for that slot. Leadership has 1 other upgrade, which is Inspired. It attaches to an ally to boost its stats, and since we want to cycle through our allies to reuse their Enters play abilities, we don't really want to keep them on the table for their stats too many turns. So I'm not going to include Inspired in the deck. Cue your uninspired jokes now. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, we have 3 options for basic upgrades. We can boost our Recover, our HP, or set up a Readying engine. I think we need to come back to these later, so let's set them aside and see if we have room or need for them at the end of the process. If we look through the basic and leadership allies, there are 5 Enters play abilities. Mockingbird stuns, Nick Fury can pretty much do it all, Maria Hill draws cards, Squirrel Girl does damage, and Falcon removes threat. All are unique, so we want to add all of them to the deck. Hawkeye also has an Enters play ability. He gets arrows when he comes into play, and his arrows turn into damage as minions are revealed, which is a high value and helps us set up a productive Dance of Death or 2 for Black Widow. So he's going to be in too. 6 allies is going to drop us down to 7 spots remaining in the deck. Things seem to be getting tight, but let's see what else needs to be included. Let's switch over and see the event options from our chosen aspect. There are 7 choices here, and we could do up to 3 of any of these cards. Since we have chosen the Enters play focus for our build, let's get rid of the cards that don't really jive with that plan. That leaves us with Avengers Assemble, Lead from the Front, and Make the Call. I'm going to cut Avengers Assemble. It needs allies to be in play over multiple turns to be at its best, and that's not what we want to do. Lead from the Front is interesting because it can boost our heroes and allies unless we need it. We don't mind using it to pay for preparation cards, so I think we're probably going to keep that. Make the Call is definitely a card we want, and a full playset here shouldn't be a surprise. This is going to let us put more allies into play from the discard pile and trigger their abilities more often. Since we only have 7 spots left after those 4, or 7 spots left right now, we're going to add 4, 3 Make the Call, and 1 Lead from the Front, and that's going to drop us down to 3. Down with 3 spots left, we're going to take a look at our basic event options. 3 of these aren't really going to find a home in our deck. Emergency and Haymakers don't fill a hole in our signature pool, and Invulnerability really doesn't have a ton of great synergy with our hero. First aid is an interesting option, though. We have the choice to heal a couple of damage and maybe buy another turn or two in hero form. Hero form is where all of our preparations can trigger, so we do want to be in that form as much as possible. So let's put this on the to consider pile, and we will look at it with those upgrades that we set aside just a minute ago. If we fill up those spots with something else, they won't come in, but let's see what we've got. Leadership support options don't really match up with our goals here. We don't need an extra ally slot, and Quinjet could pay for half of our allies, but it's a little bit slow and can't really get them out of our discard pile, so no. Now, basic supports are full of little power gems. Avengers Mansion is a card drawing powerhouse, and Avengers Tower is interesting, but I'm going to say no to those two. That leaves us with Helicarrier and Quinn Carrier. Now, when I compare these cards, they both basically exhaust for a resource. However, Helicarrier actually reduces cost, where Quinn Carrier actually makes a wild resource. So, if we were going to be playing a handful of cards that needed a resource match, Quinn Carrier is marginally better. Since we don't require resource matching and Helicarrier can be played whilst in alter ego form, I'm going to put one of these into the pool of things that we're going to consider again at the end, and that's still going to keep us with 3 slots left, so let's go back and visit that pile of maybes. Alright, we've got 3 spots left, and this is what we've set aside right now. Downtime would let us recover half of our health for each activation, but I'm just not feeling it. Tenacity is okay, but I didn't really tailor our resource pool to be able to hit that strength resource match, so I'm going to go with no. Endurance only gets us 3 additional HP, which is a lot, but First Aid has the potential to be played more than once, which could generate more than 3 HP worth of value, so I'm going to say Endurance is out. Helicarrier can let us play anything for 1 less, so I think we're going to keep a single copy, and then I guess we'll go with 2 copies of First Aid and 1 copy of Helicarrier to round out the deck. Alright, well, here's a look at the final deck list. I'm not sure this is the ideal strategy to play with Black Widow leadership. This video and the deck that we're building here are kind of like my personal testing for that. I'll be playing it in several games to see what I think about it, and I'm open to hear what you all think. Has anyone out there built a leadership Black Widow deck? And if so, please leave us a comment telling us what route you went with your build and how you fared. And that does it for this Marvel Champions deck building video. We appreciate your support and time. So if you've made it this far, lend us some love with a like and a subscribe. And until next time, let's go game.